Look at Paul's comment down there.
Paul already has a comment. Which
I can
one?
almost smell the tone woods.
So good. It's so
That's
good.
so
There's
good.
That's actually.
I love that. You know what we could do? We should start the show with. You know what we should start the show with?
What? We're gonna feed some ducks.
Yeah.
We don't have Lund, so
We don't have any Lund. We had to do something.
It's prime
Taylor
time.
time.
Hey, actually, I'm gonna read a text message from Andy Lund in a little bit because he sent me a message. But before that, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna start the show. Do 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 do. What time is it?
What
What
time
time
is
is
it?
it?
It's prime time.
What time is it?
missed opportunity. We should have had Daria do versions of all the songs.
Oh, I could have covered them
Next
for
time.
you.
We
It's
could have had
prime
Daria
time.
and Ram do primetime songs.
Oh,
We should have Daria and Ram do primetime songs.
This is
we would
why
be
I have
honored.
to. We need to hire a producer.
You know what's really interesting is Gabe doesn't even work here, but he's just ends up on the show all the time. Mike, what is the deal?
You
I'm
keep
just-
asking him.
I'm
I
not
don't
busy.
ask him. He shows up. He's got the login.
I'm just not busy. I don't have anything else to do.
You're not in
All
Philadelphia, born and
that.
raised.
I
No,
am
you're
in
not.
Philadelphia.
You know what, Jay? You know what, Jay? You know what we need to do? As they say in Office Space, we need to fix the glitch.
Okay.
We just need to fix the glitch.
Yeah, we might need to do that. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Taylor Prime Time. Taylor Prime Time. Look who's with us tonight. Look who's with us. It's Daria and Ram. So exciting. We're going to talk about home
Hi,
recording.
everybody.
Recording at home. None of us know anything about it.
Not a thing.
You're
Nope.
not sitting in front of your studio.
Nope.
Your little studio rig. Gabe, you're not. You're actually not in your studio tonight. You're in a hotel room, which is fantastic.
And well, two weeks ago, I wasn't in my studio either because I was in your office.
You were at my desk. That is right. And Daria and Ram, you just live in a studio. Is that
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
We do.
We do. And I have my whole life. Like that was one of the things I thought would be fun to talk about today. It was because of this guy. I grew up in a house with a little home studio in it. And he and my mom have been making amazing records like since I was born. And so I grew up not thinking that was weird. So I was
It's
very
not-
lucky.
It's not weird. It was really
that-
funny.
Yeah, now it's not weird at all.
I have
But-
to let everybody know something that what happened before the show because it was really funny. Okay, so Daria and Ram. They always help us make content, and from time to time, I ship them a boatload of guitars, like a literal load of guitars. Right? I believe I have like 8 or 9 or 10 guitars headed your way right now.
We'll tell you why. It's not just we're lucky, but it's also for you guys. We'll explain.
Right? We hire them. We pay them. They help us. We do their stuff. It's not just we're going to give them a bunch of guitars. The way it goes is we send them guitars.
We're gonna make cool stuff for
You
them
guys
to
get-
watch, but-
You mean we
guys
gotta
get
do something
paid?
with it?
You guys get paid?
Right, Mike and you guys get paid? What?
You
I'm
ship me
no
you
comment.
ship me a guitar once.
What's a guitar?
A guitar. Dude, no,
A
you got a
guitar.
couple.
What's
We'll get you
ag-
more.
good.
It's fine. You get to travel. You're in Philly helping us do some stuff right now, which is exciting. Anyway, okay, so back to this. So you see that guitar behind them, in between them, and behind Daria and Ram.
Yes.
I looked back there and I said, "Hey, is that a blank?" And they said, "Yeah, it is the blank." And I said, "Oh, that guitar's not even out yet." And so Daria got super bummed not bummed, but Daria
Whoa.
bummed. Like a Daria
was like,
bummed is
"Get
like
out of here."
Daria bummed is like an emoji, and it's kind of like, oh. And she kind of went, oh, I wanted to play that one. Anyway, she had a brand new guitar that's not even out yet. We haven't spoken about it. It might be coming out soon. I don't know when it's coming out. I do, but I'm not going to tell you guys. That's
It's actually my SIG model. It has 3 ES2s in it.
And it definitely has a cutaway for Daria. Of course, it's got a cutaway for Daria.
It does,
It's a
though.
cutaway.
It does, though.
Anyway.
Yeah, no, what we can say is there's something amazing coming. And I wanted to show it to you guys tonight. And these mean men wouldn't let us. So you'll get to see it soon.
Oh, we're not mean.
No,
We're
you're
not
beautiful. I love
mean.
you all
Roger
so
was the
Just-
one who
yeah.
said, Roger
Roger
was like,
brought it.
rough. You can't rough. And we're like, oh, right. So we got to move that anyway.
Yeah. But you will see it soon. And it's gorgeous.
Yes, six. Yes. Gabriel.
Roger's like our script supervisor here.
Yeah.
On Primetime.
Roger's like our script supervisor. So thank you guys again. It's Taylor Primetime. We're excited to be here. We do this most Tuesdays at 6 p.m. It's a guitar nerd talk show. It's a podcast. It's a long form. We chit chat way too much and get yelled at for it on the back end. People who haven't seen the show or are new to the show sometimes don't really understand what we're doing here, but this is a long form podcast. We're going to get you guys some really rich information about recording at home. Daria and Ram are extremely inspiring people, and it's a really great story. And so they were perfect guests for this. So I hope you guys stick with us. We got some, questions and trivia at the end. It's going to be, actually, I don't even think we have a trivia question because we didn't write a trivia question, but we'll make one up on the spot. How's that?
Yeah.
It's good.
We'll make one up on the spot. I'll figure this trivia.
The
stuff
answer is
out.
1974. So we'll just
And the
make
answer
we
is
make a
1974.
question around the answer, and then we're good.
Yeah. You know what my favorite part about last week's episode was, Mike, is when you were talking and Gabe yawned because he's 3 hours. He's 3 hours ahead of us, and he had pulled like an all-nighter editing video for another client, and it's great. So if he falls asleep on the show tonight,
Also, what happened last night before driving to Philly today? So
right?
Same.
You had some deadlines you had to meet. Anyway. Hi, Mom. I know you're watching. All right, guys.
Thank you, Mom.
So here's how this works. Let's keep the feed clean. You guys know how this is. Any derogatory or out of line comments, and you'll be put in timeout. We don't want to have to do that. Let's keep the nerd and guitar nerd. Daria Ram, it is so exciting to have you back on the show. Mike, it's always great to see you. Even though I saw you earlier
Yes.
with a really, really rad guitar, and we'll talk about that. It's right behind you. And
Ooh.
Gabe, I talked to you on the phone earlier. Maybe we were doing dumb text messages back and forth, but it's also good to see you. All right.
It's great to see you guys.
Here's how this works. We have a couple of segments up front. We do this one quite often. We're going to play a little bit of a useless clip. Before we play that useless clip, I would like to stop and take a moment to mention a very, very special person. Ram, we love having you on the show, and we wanted to extend a wonderful happy birthday to you, my friend.
Thank you so much.
You just took another year around the sun. Today is not actually your birthday, but everybody, if you could throw a happy birthday in the feed for him, that would be
Yay.
really welcomed. All
And
right.
hi, everybody in the chat. We see you. I can actually see it this time. I'm so excited to see all of you. Hi, Phil. Hi, Tex. Hi, John. Hi, Peter. Hi, everybody. We are going to talk about recording soon.
We are going to talk about recording
I love that people are
because
already
right now we've been talking for 8 minutes and 36 seconds, and we haven't talked about recording yet.
We mentioned the word, though.
We did
Yes.
mention the word, but we
mentioned the word. It's been said multiple times. So that
recording. So right now we're
We
going to
are
do a
recording
segment.
right now.
We're going to do
recording.
a segment about recordings.
yes.
All right. But first, we're going to
Previously
play a
recorded
useless
material.
Ooh.
clip. Useless clip. Useless clip.
Love it.
Daria, Ram, what
Yes.
have you guys been listening to lately?
Some really good stuff.
Some
There's
pieces.
so much great stuff that's been dropping lately. Do you want to go first?
Yeah, we're the
100
100
gex. 100 gex.
blew my mind.
Yeah, 100
Fritos
gex have a
and
new
Doritos?
album called 1000 gex. I don't know if you guys know them. They're very experimental, crazy
Crazy,
band.
but very talented. Very talented.
They're amazing. Yes, it's
lot-
incredibly fun.
And Polyphia, listen to a lot of Polyphia.
A lot of the new Polyphia album, which is called Remember That You Will Die. But it's an amazing guitar
It's a
album.
great album title.
It's incredible. Yeah,
Because
no. Well, it's
those
Memento
are-
Mori, but they just translated it to English, and it sounds a little more menacing in English. But
Right.
And a lot of Peter Gabriel too, since he's
he's
coming
been
out.
listening to the new
Yeah.
Peter Gabriel.
Kind of going back to some of his old stuff.
Why is Peter Gabriel so great? Okay,
Just
we'll get into that. That could be
Yeah.
a whole episode. Let's
Yeah,
do
that's
a
an
whole episode on Peter Gabriel.
Yeah. Oh, and the new JPEG Mafia collab with Danny Brown is incredible.
Right.
And yeah, there's so much great music coming out right now. Oh, and the new Fall Out Boy. You
We'll
sent
talk
me
about
the-
that in a minute.
The new Fall Out
Oh,
Boy is
that was
amazing.
amazing.
It's
We'll
so
talk about
much
that.
fun. Yes,
We're going to
you
talk about
picked the
that in a
best
minute.
track too. I
Wow.
loved the one you sent me.
Absolutely. Gabe,
good.
what have you been listening to?
Well,
Look, he's like, I've been listening to the engine in my car as I drove. all the way-
children's music. I spent the whole day on the phone mostly. Listened to some podcasts. No, I was listening to the other day. I listened to some Iron and Wine, some Damien Rice,
Mhm.
and I introduced somebody to Les Nubiennes recently,
Oh,
which is
wow.
a French girl group that's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Oh,
I gotta go check
Daria.
it out. You have to send it to me. That sounds awesome.
Oh, it's
I've
amazing.
been on a hunt for them on vinyl too. So if anybody has that or has a lead on that, I'd be into that. And then, Mike, were you talking about Collective Soul last time? Yeah, I got on a big Collective Soul kick after that. I was like, well, now I just have to go listen to the whole thing.
Not a bad kick to get on when you start listening to it.
No, I've been having a lot of 90s flashbacks lately. So
90s flashbacks. Mike,
Yeah.
what have you been listening to?
Well, back over here, I got that over there. You can't really see it, but
Where?
it looks like way over there. That
I see it. What is that?
That's Kick by NXS. I didn't
Oh.
realize that they had reissued that on vinyl, and so I said, you know what? I'm picking this up while I'm in the record store, and that's been on constant spin. But something else came out on Friday.
Oh my God.
Ooh.
Box set.
Oh.
What is this?
50th anniversary of Dark Side of the Moon.
Wow.
You got it.
That's a physical thing. That's
That's
so
awesome.
cool. Amazing.
It is 15 pounds, so there's a lot of stuff in there.
that's like a Roger.
It basically Roger is just a little more, but don't give him a complex or anything. But I mean, between the 160 page book that's in there, the remixed album, the live album that never came out from 1974, where they play the entire thing of Dark Side of the Moon live, the
Wow.
multi-channel playback for DVD, Blu-ray, and Atmos, which the Atmos disc, listening to Atmos, Dolby Atmos, and hearing like on the run, hearing like everything just kind of swirling around you. This album lends itself so well to that. It's like a master class on how to mix for Atmos. It is so good. The packaging is so amazing. And if you can afford it, go out and get it, but it ain't cheap. But yeah,
it ain't
that's been
cheap.
that's been spinning a lot.
Like with the Atmos mix, what you need now is like some lasers. So it's like an IMAX laser light show.
Laser
in
light
there.
show. Or
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
Those
Yeah.
are dope.
did I tell you about the one time, and then I'll get to what I've been listening to, but did I tell you about the one time I accidentally figured something out? And that is, we did the thing where you play Wizard of Oz and Dark Side of the Moon. So you put
You
Wizard
did
of
it?
Oz, Wizard of Oz on mute. And then there's a time signature on the third lion roar. You start Dark Side of the Moon. So at the beginning, you start Dark Side of the Moon, and it syncs up just perfectly. Well, at the time, we had a 5-disc changer. Remember those? Tight. Anyway, and the very next disc, accidentally, was Radiohead's Amnesiac. And I had the like deluxe packaging of that CD, and I had it on vinyl, and it accidentally started playing at the third knock on the Tin Man's chest. Because remember, Dark Side of the Moon doesn't do the whole
Yeah, you got to
movie.
play it twice.
And so, right, you got to play it
Oh.
twice. So all of a sudden, it was like, and that if you remember, the beginning of Amnesiac starts with like steel drum sound, and
Wow.
all of a sudden, I'm like, this is just too
Too good.
uncanny. And then I started looking at the artwork, and it's like flying monkeys and witches and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, could this be? I'm not going to tell anyone But then I told everyone who came over to my house because I made them watch it. That happened.
That's
That
amazing.
exact thing happened to me while watching Cool Runnings and Margaritaville by Jimmy Buffett came on.
That would be so tight if that was the truth. I hope.
It's not. I would
I'm
never
going to
listen to
do that, though. I'm
I
going to
would
watch
never
Cool
listen
Runnings
to that record. But
and Margaritaville. Okay, I have been listening to. So I had a good conversation with my brother this last weekend. We're talking about how we are always so quick to judge, and we're always so quick to be so jaded about music that if somebody likes something and we don't like it, we have to tell people. Our egos get flexed and we got to tell them how terrible it is, right? That is just how we're, oh, that's so bad. Well, it's okay to not be fans of music. That's totally fine. I agree. You can not like something, but to shame somebody else for listening to it, I've done it. I'm guilty of it. So and later on in my, I have, right. Especially, right. We'll talk about that later, Gabe, maybe on another episode, but I've done it. But recently I've been really thinking about, man, that's just not even cool. Right. It's just not, yeah. You might not like what I like, but I mean, you should like what I like, but you know what I'm saying here. Right. And so I've had a lot of people in my life, luckily, that I've been able to be friends with or just have acquaintances. One of those is the guys in the band Fall Out Boy. And I always, in the music industry, we like to say GGBB, meaning good guys, bad band. And that is a thing that a lot of people say, right? It's like there are so many bands out there that just aren't what we like. So we're like, they're totally GGBB. You know what I mean? And Fall Out Boy is just extremely talented. They got somewhere because they're so talented.
Amazing.
And I heard that they had a record coming out, and I had been reconnected with my old friend Pete Wentz, and we were talking just a little bit, and I was really excited to hear it. But I didn't ask him if I could hear it early or anything like that. Sometimes you have those perks when you're in this industry, and I waited for it to come out. And then Daria, I had watched that Zane Lowe podcast as well.
Amazing interview.
And he did a deep dive into it. And there's this one thing in there where Pete says, if we were going to make another record, I wanted it to be solid. And Zane goes, solid? This is something like, this is like the best thing you've ever made. Yeah. And so I had to listen to it. And so all I'm wanting to say is, love or hate the band, do me a favor and just go listen to it. You don't have to even like it at the end, but appreciate how big and masterful this thing is, from lyrical a creation to melodies to the way they use beats and structures. And it's beautiful. It is.
It's like a rock opera, and Patrick's voice is just as incredible as ever. And it's amazing.
His name really should be Tree, not Stump. He's
that was a dad joke. That was so good, but it's true. It's true. They are so talented. If anyone ever asks me who's one of the coolest people I've ever met in the music industry, I often will say Pete Wentz. Here's why. Awesome. He has a photographic memory. He memorized it. He knows the last time he spoke to you. He knows where you were standing. I think the last time I spoke to him was like at a backstage at like a Lollapalooza show or something like that. But if I saw him again, he would say, "Oh, I remember we were standing right there and we were having a conversation about your mom and how's your mom doing?" And it very like, he's just a very respectful human. And a lot of people just want to cut him out and say, "Oh, that's silly. He's this, or he's a star, or he's nothing." But you know what? Give the record a chance. It's really special. And on that note, let's talk about recording.
Yeah, the people in the chat very much want recording. We see you guys. We see you and we love you. And we're sorry this is part of their show.
It's a podcast. We talk, and you see learning the basics of recording music at home. But this is what it is. We talk. We listen.
Yeah, no, Paul,
we get to know people.
We got you.
We get to know people.
It's not an instruction manual. It's a guitar nerd show. We talk to people, and we talk to guitar players, and we get to know them. And we're talking about music, so we can talk about how to make music.
Yeah,
kind of
it's
gets
all
you there,
good.
you know?
Talk
Yeah.
is good. What? Recording.
And to be fair,
What?
this is what happens when you go into the studio and you make music with your friends is you think you're there to write a song and then
100%.
you talk for like 3 hours and then a song happens in the last like 20 minutes. And you're like, whoa, how did we do that? But it came from the conversation. So we've been teaching you this whole time.
We have.
100%.
And this
I-
is one of
It's
those
true.
things.
Actually, that's a good question, Daria. Like,
Yeah.
because when you guys are recording, I don't know if you do this a lot, but do you guys kind of, when you go in and you're thinking about something, do you kind of also sometimes like listen to things like reference tracks and, you know, we're kind of going for this vibe or I'm inspired by this?
Hold that question real quick because
Okay.
some of the folks because that's great. And that is exactly, Gabe, you and I are like lockstep. That's where I wanted to start with this is Daria and Ram come with a lot of inspiration. So I want to dive into that. But first, for anybody who doesn't know the lovely couple up there and daughter and dad up there on the just that could have been weird. They wouldn't.
It's like
I had to clarify.
a couple of people. Yes. That's
I had to-
Papa.
That's pops. That's
Yes.
pops. Anyway, so you know, if you don't know Daria and Ram, who are you and what do you do?
Let's keep this super quick for all of our lovely friends in the chat. He's an incredible composer, one of the most brilliant and remarkable people. Bass player, but composer, genius, complete genius. I'm so lucky to know him and have known him for my whole life. And I'm a singer songwriter, and we make music together, and we have companies together, and we make videos together, and we more maybe on that later because we do that for Taylor sometimes, and it's really fun. And and we're here because I know it's unusual and cool and weird to make music with people in your family. We make music with my brother too, and he's made albums with my mom, who's an incredible flutist. So recording and making music together has always been the core central through line in our house, in our family, ever since me and my brother were born. And so yeah, it's really exciting to be here to talk about it with you guys.
Yeah, and we basically say music is our religion.
Yeah,
so that's what we
well,
practice.
you brought me up telling me that the word religion means what you practice.
Right.
And so when I was
we
little
choose
and I was in
music.
school, I was like,
Well, that's
everybody's talking about that. Like, what religion are we? And he was like, well, that's what you practice. And we practice music. So we are musicians. Yes.
I practice putting on baseball hats, Mom. She's laughing right now. It's a joke we have. Anyway, that's wonderful. Your religion is what you practice, and that is very cool. That is super cool. You guys, let's go back to Gabe's question.
Yeah.
You guys, you grew up, Daria, in a studio. Like Ram,
And
Ram
it's
is. I
cool.
actually might. This may be a weird overlay, but I have this. And it's going to cut us off and look really silly, but this is Ram, and I don't know when.
Oh, yes. Isn't that
That's
amazing?
a long time ago.
Wait. Come into look. I think you look the same. You look the same. You look gorgeous. But you should explain, like, it's not as glamorous as it sounds. Like, that was the basement of our little apartment in Stamford, Connecticut, where I grew up, and where he made these amazing albums that sound, I mean, Jay's a fan of one of them that he knows. They still sound like they were recorded yesterday.
You could see the Fairlight in that picture, but there was a lot of Roland samplers on the other side of the wall and stuff. But yeah, I made four albums down in that basement.
Yeah.
And we just released Jingu. I remastered that. It was a rainforest record.
His band with my mom. They're called Present Dreams. They have this amazing kind of like rainforest inspired album called Jingu. And
Jingu is oh man. It was like I you guys sent it to me last year, right? So I want to say it was one of the highlights of 2022 for sure. When I got that record, I just couldn't stop listening to it, and I have all this like imagination, and I'm like, let's do this, and let's do this, and let's make this, and it is so amazing. We'll link it. I'll try and link it in the comments.
Awesome.
But let's go back to Gabe's question.
Totally.
Gabe, take that question again for anybody who's just joining, and let's get into inspiration.
So yeah, I wanted to ask, since we're talking about music that we're listening to and things we like and things we're into, do you guys use like reference tracks, or when you're writing, are there things that inspire you? And when you go into the recording process, you're going, this is kind of the sound I was going for, or this is kind of the the thing that kicked off my writing of this song, and I kind of want to capture that vibe, and or maybe make it my own thing or whatever. I was just wondering if you guys do a lot of that, because it's an experience I've had a lot with artists.
Yeah, I think we're kind of outside the norm in that he sort of raised me to not do that. Like, he gets really annoyed when people do that. Like, if we're in a session and someone's like, "Oh, let me play this thing," he's like, "Do we have to?" Because usually there's already ideas going. But I don't know about you. Like, I love listening to a lot of stuff, and I get really, really inspired when I'm listening to a lot of different music. And then I write stuff that sounds nothing like what I'm listening to. So we don't usually bring it into the studio itself, but maybe when we're on our own and we're listening to things and then we're sitting down and writing. I'm sure everybody like in the chat has that experience too. You're listening to something and then something starts to pop off, and yeah
more like a pre-production exercise. Like,
definitely. Yeah.
Well, I do that if I'm looking to do a master or something to see how it compares with stuff, And sometimes I actually try to do a song that I really like, and I'm never really good at that, but the song that I do right, I like. So
Yeah.
so it's a good starting point. You try. I did a thing with it was an old U2 song. Remember, that's how I wrote LED. It was
it was the put on your boots thing. I remember that. I remember that.
And I was trying to figure that out, and then I just fell into this thing that I thought was much more satisfying to me, and I wasn't able to copy them. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the other thing. Yeah, the other thing that's interesting is I'll work on a track, and then Daria will just sit down and start writing lyrics.
Mm-hmm.
And she'll write lyrics from books that she's been reading.
Well, yeah, that's what's fun. I mean, if you want to sort of get to the basics, guys, like, because I'm just seeing the chat over here. It happens in two different ways, and I'm sure it's the same for everybody out there who records. Sometimes he'll make an amazing track or an amazing piece and show it to me, and things will start popping off in my head, and I'll start singing or writing. We'll be at the piano, and I'll start singing along, or he'll send me a track, and I'll start writing to that, or I'll write like a whole song on guitar and voice, and then bring it to him, and then he helps kind of bloom it into something much bigger than what I was even hearing in my head. Or I drive him crazy and I'm like, okay, this is what I'm hearing. And it's like, if, fireflies were sounds and they were beats and they were flying all around your head. And then he tries to help me, make it into a thing.
I got a really cool idea. Idea so that we can show some relevance to this.
Sure.
I got a really great clip. It's almost 3 minutes long, and we're going to watch it real quick. And everybody in the feed who came here and they don't really understand what we're talking about, it's a podcast. We're talking about learning some basics of recording. You may already know all this stuff. It's just a conversation. It's an open forum for people who may not know. But some of this content that I have Daria and Ram make, I'll just send them a bunch of guitars and say, will you make something? And they say, what? And I say, I don't know. Make some music. Whatever inspires you from this. I'm going to show a video that they made for us that will help you understand what we're talking about. With the first thing you need before you record anything is inspiration. So we'll see you back in about 2 minutes and 45 seconds.
So this is what happens when you go into the studio with 4 guitars you've never played before and no plan.
So good.
We've been
Thanks
talking
so
for
much,
31 minutes and 2 seconds, and then we played a 3-minute video just for everybody who wants to keep time.
So wait, that was actually probably a cool place to jump off from, because that is legit what happened. Like, you sent us those guitars. We said, "Oh my God, thank you so much." And when we make videos for you, we really genuinely want to be inspired by exactly what came. And this is a perfect example of our workflow, actually, this song, because we picked them up, we started playing them, we got really inspired. And then we thought about what would sound the best, what would really bring these out. And the ba-da-dum-da, ba-da-da-da-da, that part is a piece that you had already started a long time ago that I always loved. And so, right? Is it that part? No, it's the
Yeah.
that's his song. And so we were playing that and I was like, this is really great. But I was like, but these are like really, oh, I just want to like play more. And so I started doing the and I was like, let's dig in a little bit more. And then we put them in the right key. We like merged them together. And so that piece is actually very much like half him and half me, and putting our different sounds together. And it was so much fun to get to do. I saw in the chat, some people were asking, do you remember how many tracks that was?
Well, it's interesting because there were 4 guitars and there were 3 tracks for each guitar.
Right.
And then there were the overdubs and
because it was what, 2 mics and the line in
2 mics and the
for
line
4
in.
guitars.
Right.
And then I sang a little bit.
Right. And then there was, let's see, there's probably maybe 10 or 15 tracks with, percussion and backup synths.
Right. And that was the other thing that for me in the studio, I mean, you guys in here probably know more than I do about the like important recording basics that maybe people want to hear about. And I will defer to all of you gentlemen about a lot of that. But for me, getting in the studio, once I have the headphones on and I'm like on the mic, what happens for me is I get into this heightened state of listening and I get really excited about everything, especially like textures. And as a singer, I'm like, ooh, now I'm hearing the little grit in my voice, and I'm hearing the woodiness of the guitar, and I'm hearing what happens when I palm mute versus when I strum big.
Right.
And I get excited about using like all parts of the animal when it comes to that. And so what you hear at the beginning of that video, and you can go back and watch it again if you want, it's on the Taylor YouTube channel. We sampled. I was just like, wait, just record me. Like, I'm going to knock it. I'm going to scratch it. I'm going to play. I'm going to put it. And then he threw that all into a sampler on the keyboard and went bling, blang, 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 and like made a track out of that, which was really, really fun. So
all the tone woods were different. So it was really interesting to just.
Yeah. Because what did we have? Mahogany. We had
maple.
Somebody just asked which one was my favorite. I can show this one was my favorite.
I like the blacktop myself.
He likes the blacktop. I like this. This is the 611. This one's my favorite. She's so pretty.
In a little bit, we should probably have you play a song. So
I would love to
keep it nearby.
Okay, yes.
But let's go into some basics, right? Let's go into some basics. What do you need, right? So you guys are living in your house.
Yeah.
And the interesting part is Mike's in his house. And I'm not. I have this studio at Taylor, and then we have another studio off campus that I spend a lot of time in personally. But let's remove home recording. We don't need to say home recording anymore, because the amount of guys, right? The amount of locations, like we'll rent locations, or Gabe, the one I'm thinking of is Saul's house, Maggie's boyfriend, right? Mm-hmm. He's a well sought after session guitarist in Nashville, and he's got a studio set up right in his loft, and that's where he does all of his work. It's not his house. It's not a home studio anymore. It's a studio, and you can put a studio wherever you want to put a studio. I've worked on records where we record the vocals in a shower because we needed that kind of sound, right? Yeah,
we built a fort. Like we literally, like, a lot of people have the really, really sexy like paneling and sound traps that people buy online. And like, we literally like took apart an old bed that had foam and built a fort. And I was like, I love that my job as a grown up involves building a fort. Like when I was little, this is really fun. And we just got some good dampening going on in there. And then this room has really high ceilings and is really live. But if anybody's watching and thinking like, I don't think I could get that sound at home, like Kay Springer's like, I'm not sure I could pull that off at my house.
Well, here's a good one. Yeah,
you really can. You just
where do you start?
Clutter. Yeah. So do you want to kick things off?
It's real. The basic thing is
microphone.
Just a little aside. When I was growing up, everything was hardware. And the only way you could access the hardware is you had to get time in the studio. And the other way you could figure out what a reverb sounded like is pay for it, right? Unless you could afford to buy all this hardware gear, which was hundreds and hundreds of thousands of bucks. You have everybody in their phone even have access to all of the software that emulates all that stuff, which is incredible.
Yeah.
It's just incredible. So if you have a GarageBand, start there. Get yourself a little interface that you can look on Sweetwater or wherever you buy your gear from.
Yeah, he has like the fancy bigger ones. I use the Universal Audio Apollo Twin, which is, it's kind of, it's a little bit pricier than some of the other easy options you can get, but comes with lots of great reverbs and stuff built in. So that's for someone like me where I want a little bit of choice, but not so much that I feel overwhelmed. That's a really, really great one.
Yeah, so you figure out what are your needs. Like if you're a singer-songwriter, you just probably need 2 inputs.
Right.
One for the mic, one for the guitar. Then you can do all your overdubs and that stuff. So you get all your information in. So what you want to do is get familiar with the DAW, the digital audio workstation that you're going to work in.
And that could be GarageBand or Logic or Pro Tools or
Cubase.
Yeah.
Bitwig. There's tons of these.
Ableton.
So you just decide what flavor you like, or they all have they have their own presets and things. And if you're a Apple user, you've got GarageBand and Logic. Yeah. It's a great place that the many albums are made.
I use Logic the most.
Pro Tools is a little bit more advanced, but you could do that too. You could start with Pro Tools. I think it's the first level of Pro Tools, which is pretty basic. But that even is free, I think. I think the first.
Yeah. And you can start as simply as like you just have a microphone and you plug it into whatever your interface is going into the DAW, and then you set a tempo, or if you're like me and you're always stressed out about what tempo is the song actually at, you can jam out a little bit first and figure it out, and then do like adapt tempo to see which tempo you're actually in. And then you just start from there, and then you can build. It can seem overwhelming, but if you just start, then you've got some paint on the canvas, and then you can start having fun. And I don't know what you guys want to add. You are all recording brilliant dudes.
So there's been a couple of questions. Gabe is fantastic at this too, because his studio that he's usually on the show from, that's at his house too. So it's no longer home studio. Let's just break that stigma real quick. There's no difference. Yes, there's a difference. You can spend millions of dollars and build like these grandiose studios that are fantastic. But at the end here, I'm going to wrap up with some topics that Gabe helped us write for an article in our Digital Wood and Steel, and that is how to get started with recording guitar. Right. Start with one instrument, but I have a little checklist here. So let's talk about a space to record. What does that look like? Where are we going to start?
Do you have to be in a fancy studio to record?
No.
I've never recorded in a fancy studio ever. The one time I was in one, I don't know if you guys know Fab Dupont from Pure Mix. Mm-hmm. He's sort of a friend of ours, and he's an amazing dude. And once I got the opportunity to go hang out in his studio, and I felt so nervous and stressed out because I'm so used to recording being such a natural space that I've made feel comfortable for myself. And I've heard this from a lot of young musicians like of my generation now, that this is what's normal for us. And the extra added stress of having a stranger watching you while you're trying to do it is kind of off-putting. And so there are major hit songs that we've all heard that have parts that were recorded on people's iPhones. Bad Guy, Billie Eilish, they recorded the sound of a crosswalk in Australia, and that's part of the beat. And they just did it on their iPhone, and they threw it right into the track, and that was that. And I know Charlie Puth uses his phone all the time and doesn't even redo it. He just throws it in and treats it a little bit. So everybody has the tools at their disposal. You don't have to be in a fancy room at all. I actually think it's scary.
If I can inject one really quick thing about using the phone, and I think Jay and Gabe, I think you both know this, but I do use my phone to get some sounds. And my ex-neighbor used to sing karaoke very loud and very badly in the apartment, and it would sound like his door was open, but his door was closed. But I would go out and I would record him, and then I would use that to write a song.
I know it's so interesting how noise works. Gabriel is in. I've heard that, and I've heard it, Mike, and it's not only is it hilarious, but it was like I commend you for recording it and actually making a song out of it. That's cool.
Hmm.
That's
cool.
exactly what we're talking about. Inspiration. You were inspired to do something like that. Okay, now Gabriel. Gabriel's in Philadelphia, and last week I talked about a good friend of ours, Will Yip, and we are going to have him on the show at sometime in the next few months, but he's busy. It's like one record after another, just making hits, right? That's what he's got to do. Anyway, Gabriel's going to the studio tomorrow we're working on a project with him that's really special, and I'll save that for a little bit. And we'll premiere it at a later time this year. But Will Yip is you get a lot of people who are so focused on the sound. You get like the old school way of going into a studio is having that, and you spend an entire day putting the microphone in the right place.
Yeah.
And we've gotten to this world where it's like, in this time where it's like, no, the songs are good, man. If the song's good, it's going to be good. And we're going to make it really good. And we'll talk about that ad nauseum. Like the idea of, I'm a songs guy, I'm not a sounds guy. He records every single vocal that he has right in the control room with him. It's not isolated.
Yeah.
It's in a control room with a lot of room noise, and his studio is so old and amazing at the same time. But it's like he then is face to face with that vocalist, and they're getting the best out of each other. Does that make sense? So we don't have to. The space. Let's go back to Gabe. Like Gabe, your space in your it's in your basement, right? Like why? Because that's where you had room.
Well, yeah, it's my second recording space. Before I got married, I lived in an old house that was built in 1920. So it was all plaster and oak, and not at all a treated space, or even what most people would call a good space. But when we talk about spaces, one of the things you could do is look for the unique spaces that you have. Like I had an upstairs stairwell. Again, plaster and oak stairwell, so it's tall. And I would stick a speaker out there and use it as a reverb chamber. Or I would put guitar amps out there a lot.
Oh, cool.
Or if I was recording drums downstairs in the living room, I would stick a mic at the top of the stairwell and do things like that. So you can play around with the space and figure out what sounds good in the space. You want to try to avoid. Just kind of getting back to the basics things, you want to try to avoid your HVAC sounds. So try to stay away from vents. Try to stay away from your refrigerator or anything that's noisy, and kind of try to get to a quieter part. Bedrooms always work well. Anywhere that's a little bit quieter. Closets work great. I mean, I've recorded in a lot of hotels and lobbies and conference rooms. I recorded Jason Mraz and Andy at the NAMM show, which is extremely loud. You can record anywhere, so you don't have to have a professional studio space.
I was working with a band, and we were looking for a specific tonality, and we ended up recording this vocal. They wanted the vocal to sound like it was singing in I know that sounds crazy, but like almost as if they were singing in a very long trash can. Like if you cut the ends off a bunch of trash cans.
Yeah,
right?
no, I get it.
Right. And it was like they wanted this long throw, kind of weird metallic sound. And where we ended up getting it? It was the neighbor, a friend of mine. We were just kind of, where's this at? The studio. The neighbor had a pool, an empty pool that they skateboarded in. And so we ended up recording the vocals at the deep end of the empty pool outside. And it, oddly enough, made that long trash can sound. Because that's what we wanted. So that inspiration of where you need to record. I mean, I've seen Gabe, we've been in some sticky situations with recording some artists. And oh boy, we gaff taped a lavalier microphone to the bottom half, like the waist of a guitar, and it sounded
a couple
incredible.
Times recently.
Done that, and that it was like it was like a not so expensive. It was one of those little Rode Go lavalier mics. It wasn't very expensive, but Gabe always talks about it, and we'll get it to him. We'll talk about it in a minute. It's about it's not necessarily about the mic. It's about where you put the mic, and maybe you can get some integrate. So let's go to equipment. What are the basic needs? So now we have a place. We've imagined this place. Mom, I'm coming to your house. I'm building a studio in the closet. So now I'm in my mom's closet building the studio. What equipment do I need? What are the basic tools? We talked about this digital audio workstation, but let's break it back. So we need a computer or some sort of recording device, right?
You can, I mean, if breaking it down even more basic, if you don't have a computer, you can start with one of these.
Yep.
You really can.
You can literally set this up. You can use, there's a free music memos app or voice memo app. You can set this up and try recording with that. Try moving it different places. Checking out what it sounds like when you move it around, how it records.
And there are microphones. There are microphones that'll interface with your iPhone as well that work via Lightning or what have you. You can download 4-track apps, aplenty.
Yep.
And just the speaker that's or the microphone that's on this, it does work. It's not the highest fidelity.
No,
sure. So I mean, if you spent like a couple of bucks on something you could plug in, that might help you a little bit.
Right.
But sorry to interrupt.
No, not at all.
It's funny though, just to make a point. Like if you think about like in the '60s, Abbey Road Studios, right, which was EMI Studios, or vice versa. Actually, it was EMI, then it became Abbey Road. Pretty much all the technology and all the sounds and everything that they did could fit in this.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
which is crazy.
Yep.
Now explode this out to a computer with a DAW and an interface and some plugins, and you could do virtually anything you want.
Yeah.
So even if an interface isn't in your budget, USB recording mics are an option for starting out.
Yeah.
I mean, if that's what's in your budget, if you got $100, get an AT2020 USB or whatever. Start with a decent USB mic if an interface isn't in your budget yet. If it is, I agree 100% with Rand. Get a 2-channel interface.
Yeah.
They're all pretty good.
They're all pretty good. Right now I'm using a Focusrite. I'm using a Focusrite Scarlett. We have another Focusrite over here.
Yeah.
We have an 8-channel Focusrite. I have an Apollo 8P. I have an Apollo Twin. There's so many different interfaces that are just great for what they
Anything
are.
that's any kind of name brand is probably going to be pretty good.
I want to talk about this comment.
You want to do though with the interface, they all have a headphone jack.
Yep.
That's really you don't have to have studio monitors.
Nope.
Get a nice set of headphones that are relatively.
The Audio Technicas, everybody uses these. These are amazing, not expensive. Yeah.
And the cool thing is you can work in a very small, on the phone. Even if you do like 4 or 5 tracks on the phone, you take those stems to somebody who has a bigger computer, and you can produce your thing. So the idea is sonic capture, right, and sonic collecting. That's all basically what you're doing. And then what's your story? What do you want to convey? And I think the other thing that I've learned over the years, which is really a blessing, is that the muse is a current that's always there and it's always available. So I don't believe in writer's block or any of that stuff, but you just have to clear yourself out for your intention. And it's always there. You can just reach up. And I always think that all the hit songs are up there and somebody's just lucky who grabs one, because I don't really think we do it. We're just showing up and, being present, being there.
So let's talk about that for a minute. I kind of want to get to this question just real quick. Okay. I agree right here. Find a place that is quiet, most quiet place you can have. And it doesn't matter if it's a cheap dynamic mic or a $3,000 condenser. Not a lot of people have $3,000 to drop on condensers. I'm in a lucky position where, I've partnered with a lot of mic companies. So it's different, or we've been doing this for so long. I have relationships where sometimes you don't have to pay $3,000 for a $3,000 mic. I'm blessed that way, right? Very, very grateful for relationships, but find a quiet place and use your phone and record something inspiring, and then keep recording and keep recording. And it goes back, Gabe and Mike, to the ES2 conversation, right? Where it's like, sometimes with the ES2, you just might not like the way you're playing that day, or the guitar that you've chosen, or the pick that you're using.
Mm.
But it's an easy button for people to go, the ES2 is no good, right? But when we have inspiration, Ram, what you said was also spot on. Intention. When I'm writing songs, you should hear the babble lyrics. You can imagine it. Listen to how much we talk at the beginning of the show before we start talking about the subject. Like sometimes I'm just finding sounds for the melody and the structure, and then once I have that babble, but I like the tonality, or I like the harmonies, or I like I like what I'm hearing, then I'll go right to that. That's the way I've always done it, because I'm not a trained musician, right? I took lessons. Again, my mom made me play that hand-me-down clarinet when I was a kid, and then it turned into tenor saxophone, and then it turned into Mom, I want to play guitar, and it turned into Mom, I want guitar lessons, and turned into guitar lessons are dumb. And then later on in life, I picked the guitar back up. Right?
That's awesome.
That's just how it all happens. Like, not all musicians are trained. We kind of just figure this thing out.
I think you're getting to something else that I think is really important, which is, hi, Christopher. Hi. Sorry, people saying hi. The other thing, like I was talking earlier about, recording is like one of my favorite places to live, like in the headphones on some kind of a mic, right? Yeah. Because you are hearing the world differently. And I'm like a very auditory being. And so like having that heightened is really exciting. And I think that it's really easy to think there's like a right way to do these things. And the more I've watched videos of experts and hung out with him and listened to people like you talk about it, the best advice I keep hearing is to develop your own sense of sound and learn what you like. And that's the most important thing. And it sounds flip, but it's not. It's like, what sounds good to you is what's most important. And so if you start just goofing around, like you said, like get a bunch of tracks from voice memos. Voice memos is my most used app on my phone. I use it all day, every day. And then get them in the DAW and listen, or get on a mic, whatever mic you can get, and listen. You'll start to notice what sounds good to you. And the more you lean into that, the more you'll start to find something that is your sound. And that's really cool. So like for me, when I first started, I'm a songwriter. I don't consider myself a producer, not yet. I aspire to one day. But I started to notice the more I hung out in that environment, I really love when things are experimental or weird or crazy, but I don't like it when it hurts my ears. And so then I start to learn, I want to roll off the attack on everything. I want everything to have a super soft attack and then be as weird as it can possibly be. But I want to be able to turn up the volume and not hurt my ears. So that's important to me. Or I feel like, I'm not a trained trained mixer. I don't know how to like EQ properly. But if I really listen, I'll hear when something sounds a little weird, and I can pull up the simple little EQ thing in Logic and pull it around and go, there is a frequency that's popping there, and pull it down. And I'm just listening to my own ears. And so I think you guys can really do that. You start noticing, I really like when I'm palm muting the guitar, actually. I really like the way this sounds. And I actually feel like I should throw to you, because somebody asked a while ago, what's the difference between like plugging in through the ES2 and miking the guitar? And I know we always do both and then have fun blending it. Do you have like and I know Gabe and Mike and Jay, you guys know more about like the correct mic placements, but how do you handle that when we record all of it and then mix it?
Well, the great thing about the Taylors is that the acoustic guitars sound really great lined in.
This is
they do.
That's
the question.
Yeah, that was it.
That's a really nice, especially the V-class bracing. I find Andy's design, the guitars are much more, they stay in tune all the way up the neck. So
the intonation's crazy.
If you're working with synthesizers and things like that, you don't have a lot of intonation problems that I used to get with older guitars. But what I like to do is I like to get the sound on the sound hole, and then a sound on the neck of the guitar with mics, and then line in, and then decide when I'll play the one piece, and it's all right. It's one performance, and then I decide what color I like the best, and if I need any of the other, Yeah. So I think you just experiment with that, and it depends on ribbon mics are really nice if you have access to ribbon mics. But whatever you're using, I think if you split things up, if you do three tracks with the line in and two guitars, it's just a brilliant sound. The instruments are so great.
Yeah.
So you want to represent them. One thing I wanted to say about the basics, just to get people, it's sort of an interesting thing. The most important thing about the basics of recording is to start.
Yes, that's absolutely true.
I was waiting for that.
What I notice about most people is they don't know where to start, how to start, or what to start. So they don't, right? So if you start, what I find, I start and I discover chaos. Mm-hmm. And chaos is basically archaeology, right? There's a bunch of dirt on the ground, but you think there's something there. So you dust and you move stuff around, and it starts to reveal itself. And the next thing you know, you're just on a journey of things that you're delighted about, right? But in the beginning, it's always I always find it kind of a mess. It's like, I don't like that. That's not cool. When I was in school, I was so hard on myself because it was all about, I didn't want to be corny. Sure. So anything that was a really heartfelt melody, I would change and put, blues notes on it or do something to it. And, that's just the wrong approach. What you've got to do is say the muse wants to play. So it's you play with music. It's like your friend. And it's going to play at your skill level. So it might throw you things you don't really understand, and you can only do a little bit of it. But the more you practice, the more it reveals to you, oh, wow, you can arpeggiate now. And it gets excited and says, well, look at all the arpeggios, right? You could do it in 4 octaves. Or, well, hold on, I'm not ready for that, right? So I think it's a really interesting thing. If you just start, you're starting a relationship with something that's the biggest thing in the world, in the universe, is music.
Yeah,
I have to agree with you completely. You just got to start. You just got to start somewhere. So I'm going to round this up real quick, and then I'm going to bring some questions in for Gabe. I've got some great.
Can I throw one thing on in relation to what Daria and Ram were saying? Because you're talking about about just starting, and I want to talk about a little bit about how to just start. One of the best things you can do, especially with a guitar, vocals are pretty straightforward. You want to be 6-ish inches away from the microphone. Pop filters are great. If you're using a condenser mic, it's long.
Use your hand. Yeah,
I'm an ape, so it's farther if I do it. But yeah, you can use this distance is about right for most people. Those Hendrix chords, it's so good. So with a guitar, one of the coolest things that I did when I was learning, and I'm wondering, Ram, if you did something like this too. And we're talking about, different people liking different things. Where Ram places his microphones isn't where I place microphones at all. That doesn't mean Ram's wrong. It just means we hear the guitar differently. We have a different preference, and that's totally cool. The way I kind of found mine was I started off with a single microphone on a microphone stand, and I'm in a rolling chair right now. And I was in a rolling chair, and I set a microphone on a stand, and I just moved around.
That's cool.
And I just played and I moved around until it sounded like the guitar, or as close to like the guitar as possible. And I went, okay, that makes a lot of sense. And then I had back then I didn't have in my studio like the mic stands with rollers on them, so I actually put my mic stand on something, and I had literally like a stick to push it around with. But as a second microphone, I had my one, and I moved the second one around if you're using two. And you can just use one, totally fine. But for a second one, I kind of moved it around until it sounded good to me. And I went, okay. So
it's on Taylor's new program, Rent a Ram.
For real.
You can borrow him sometime.
Highly recommend, 5 stars. One of the best things you can do is set even just one microphone is a great place to start. Set a single microphone up, play guitar, and move around. Listen with headphones on, and just move around and see what you find the spots that you like the sound of. You'll hear drastically different things. And I'm sure Ram can tell you this because Ram does a lot of mixing work and a lot of post work. There's a lot more difference in moving a microphone 1 to 3 inches than anything you can do with an EQ after the fact.
Yeah, absolutely.
Totally. Yeah. And I think just to catch you, I think you misspoke earlier and people were confused. You don't usually put the microphone right in front of the sound hole, right? It's usually kind of off on the bridge a little bit, or like we do a lot of what Gabe says. Like we don't have a set way that we mic them. We usually even depending on the guitar, like kind of move it around and see what sounds good that day. Like you don't have to stress about these things. Just trust your ears,
I call it the case of being too safe, right? Some
Yeah.
engineers will gnaw your ear off if you tell them that you place the microphone this way or that way, or they
Yeah.
say, no, you can't do that. You have to put it here and here only. That's not true. Like Gabe said, especially like Ram said, and Mike and I know this 100%. V-class bracing. Let's just get to our guitars right now. With V-class bracing, if you have a big enough room, put a mic 30 feet away from the sound hole and tell me that it's not good. In fact, it's probably better. And which is weird for a lot of people. You got a close mic or you got to do this. No, it goes back to that. You got a place, you got a nice space. Let's just try and use it.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, I'm going to give Gabe a little nod here. Very rare, by the way. I don't really compliment him. It's very rare. But I'm going to compliment Gabe right now. Have a phone a friend. Have a person on speed dial, so to speak, that you can call and say, I'm miking this thing. What would you recommend? I do it all the time. There's probably a weird 20% of our communication that's based on, hey, I've got this situation. What would you do here? I just want to hear. I have other people that I speak to that way. We work with Ben Moore, for example. He does a lot of studio stuff for us here in San Diego. I call Ben. I send Ben text messages all the time. How would you do this? And I've been doing it for quite a while, right? So don't be afraid to get a little uncomfortable with miking or get a little uncomfortable with recording, because it's all great. It's all great.
Yeah.
Some of it's like, oh, I played a sour banjo note or something like that. And you got to go fix that.
That's all of them, right?
That's all of them. That's all the notes. Anyway, so I kind of want to just roll through this real quick. So you got to find a place, but before you find a place, you got to be inspired. Yeah. Just do something. Use your phone.
I've recorded
something
outside too. You don't even have to be inside necessarily.
Sure.
Yeah.
There's so much equipment, and we could list all the equipment in the world. Use what you got. Use where you can start, what you can afford. If you can afford, you found a mic on Amazon and you think it's good enough, and you just buy a mic and plug it in and move, like Gabe said, around, I bet you're going to find a sweet spot for that microphone. If you don't have a computer, use your phone. But if you have a computer, find a good digital audio workstation, DAW, we call it.
Yeah.
And
GarageBand is free. It's a great place to start. GarageBand is basically Logic. Like Logic is just more of what GarageBand gives you. But if you start there, you're training for what professionals use. Yeah.
Right. I'm a Pro Tools user. I use Ableton Live and I use Cubase for MIDI. So I'm using 3 different things. Ram, you started using Luna lately, didn't you? Yeah. Okay. So there's so many out there that you can reach for, and maybe it's a good time for us to do a blog article, update a blog article about this kind of stuff. You're going to need cables.
Maybe Ram and I can leave some microphone recommendations in the comments later.
Yeah, that would be really, really great. That would be helpful, Gabe. Microphones, cables, power is a thing that you're going to need, right? If you got to plug all this stuff in somehow, you're going to need extension cords, like all these things that you got to think of. Headphones work.
Great hard drives.
I was going to get to that. One of Ram's, when we were doing some pre-production on this, he's like, get a little isolation and get yourself some good hard drives.
Not that expensive. You get one of these little critters. He's tiny, but boy, he's robust.
We just got this. Yeah. Like an SSD drive so you can get it going kind of fast. And
I think the Samsung T7s are how much, Gabe? Like $90 for 2 terabyte?
Yep.
Yeah, they're on sale right now for
they're like $89.
The T7 Shield, they're like waterproof and stuff.
Yeah, 2 terabytes. That's a lot of data that you can put in there. Okay. Yeah. So those are some basics, but I want to bring this, it's a Guitar Nerd show. I want to bring this back. We'll answer a few more questions. We're at 1 hour and 5 minutes and 20 seconds. And we talked a lot about recording. Hey, I have a touch mix right behind the camera.
Yeah,
over there.
We have one back there.
Yep. That is an excellent piece. Excellent tool. You can record 24/48 inside. You could it is just fantastic. We'll get to maybe we'll dive into
mixed a bunch of touch mix stuff from Latin Grammys.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Awesome.
Cool.
Yeah, we had a touch mix there, something like that. It's just really, really easy. You get your sounds, you're good to go. All right.
And all the DAWs have digital versions of mixers too. So like I don't have a mixer at my setup at all. Like you don't need it. So you can have a physical one or you don't need one. Don't let it stop you.
Don't let it stop you. All right, check this out. So in a few minutes, we're gonna have Daria play a song. So if you've been sticking around, you're gonna get some entertainment. It's great. We'll stop talking while she plays, but only while she plays. Okay. So Gabe did an article for us a while back, and it was about some getting introduction to recording at home, I think is what it was actually called. And I have the link, and I'm going to throw it here real quick so that I'll throw it in there later so they don't leave. See how I did that? Anyway, but I'm going to walk through 4 questions, and I'd love the group as a whole. We can kind of answer these questions real quick. So here's one we get all the time. What's the best guitar to record with? Gabe, go.
The one you've got.
Nice.
Right?
Yeah.
The one you've got. I could tell you my favorites, but are they going to be your favorites? Not necessarily. Everybody in their head has a mental picture. When you say acoustic guitar, there's a sound that comes to mind. If you grew up in a certain area, it's some sounds or whatever, and you probably gravitate towards that tone wood or whatever. What you have is the best thing to record with. What you're used to, the things that you're used to playing.
All right, ready? I'm going to move around on this one. Mike, can you plug your guitar in to record it?
Plug your guitar into what?
Meaning, can you plug it in and record it? Meaning, can you use the ES2?
Oh, as far as Taylor, yes, you can, because it's an unbalanced system. It'll plug right in. You can plug line level in. Just got to make sure you got your levels right. Make sure you EQ up, and you can absolutely just plug and play.
So we had a question earlier, if I can find it, that was really interesting that I'd like to hit, and it was Pro Tools for MIDI. Hey, Stephen, I would use Cubase for MIDI. It's fantastic. Well, the question was, do people still, for people who play electric, do you still mic the amp, or do you take a DI, or do you use like Axe Effects or Fractal Audio?
The answer is
or
yes.
Kemper or anything like that. So in those situations, Mike, what do you think?
For me, well, I've done it both. I've done both. I predominantly run Fractal Audio Axe Effects. That's what I do now. But years and years and years ago, I don't know if you guys remember the Line 6 Pod Farm.
Sure.
I used that to start off with their little plastic interface that costs like $100 for the whole package.
Yep.
That bean.
Yeah. Well, no, not the pod itself.
Their interface.
They actually had
Farm.
an interface that was that came with Pod Farm, and it was the one of the first sort of computer based interface program that was like remotely affordable. Now, of course, technology's gotten better over time. I think in a lot of situations, if you said, tell me which one is the mic'd amp and which one is a direct modded signal,
not anymore.
Good luck trying to tell the difference. Years ago, you could do that. There was
usually the sim is the one that sounds better usually now.
One day we're going to start talking about IRs, and we'll get to that. But it is true. It is so good now. Yeah. Most of the bands that I work with or around now play, I would say, Mike, they all lean Fractal. I lean Fractal. Kemper is good.
I mean, it's you know what, the people I know, it's like a 50-50 split. One is more roadworthy than the other in my mind, and that's the Axe Effects. That's a personal opinion. But the great thing about that is you can replicate what you did in the studio live by using that same unit.
Which is cool.
Metallica, go see Metallica's touring this summer. You will hear like very little to no stage volume. because they run Axe-FX rigs.
They run Axe-FX rigs, and they're running it through Pro Tools.
Yep.
And Pro Tools has the ability to do things like a band that I work closely with. Their guitar player their second guitar player is in a different band, and there was a chance that he wasn't going to make their show. And so what they did was they pre-recorded all the second guitar parts, and the stage left guitar triggered the second guitar parts. So
Oh, wow.
you couldn't even tell things like, I mean, the technology is great, and we shouldn't be afraid to grow with it. So there's that. The next one is, I got another question. What's the best way to mic an acoustic guitar? Now, we talked about this. Gabe, how do you mic an acoustic guitar? And then we'll go to how Ram mics an acoustic guitar.
If I'm using a single microphone, which is where I recommend everybody starts, I will typically start with a single microphone on the treble side of the upper bout. The upper bout is the side that is closest to the headstock, basically. I will start on the treble side of that. A lot of times you'll read about 14th or 12th fret or 14th fret and stuff like that online. That's a totally legitimate way. I tend to move a little more towards the body and a little lower. It helps me defeat the sound hole, but also get more body out of the guitar. And I'm usually 8 to 12 inches away from the guitar. That's where I'll start with a single mic. If I'm adding a second mic, more often than not, my first try at placing it, and it can change based on where I am or what I'm doing or what the guitar is like. More often than not, I'm going to be about strumming or about shoulder high to your strumming arm, 4-ish feet away, sometimes 6 feet or 8 feet away, but usually about 4 feet away, and then angled slightly down kind of at the bridge. And that gives you more of the body. And so those things combined together really, to me, sound like the guitar, because that's usually my goal. A lot of the stuff that I record is for like video content I'm filming for Taylor, and I'm trying to capture the exact sound of that guitar. If I'm trying to get like a more percussive sound or something like that, I would probably remove some of that body for it. But that's kind of my starting point. And then I absolutely, if there's an ES2 out, I always take an ES2 out if nothing else, as a safety. There's content I've made where I had a bad mic cable or a great
stand.
A great performance, right. But somebody bumped a microphone and kicked a microphone stand. So ES2, man, it's a lifesaver.
And don't be afraid. That's a very basic measurement. It's a great idea to just start with that single mic, Gabe. That point was cool. And then you can do all the other stuff that's weird. Sure, I often mic over the shoulder.
Yeah, that's cool too.
I'll do weird stuff because it's fun. But start with that safety. Ram, what is your safety? What is again, you said it earlier, but break it down just a little bit.
It's sort of a traveling thing. Like usually I'll set up 2 mics.
Yeah.
And I'll move them around. Well, have Daria play, and I'll move them around till I find what I'm looking for.
Sweet spot.
So the sweet spot. So I think, again, it's just start, right? You start, you listen, you move the mics around. I don't think that there is any one way to do it, because they're all a little bit different, and they all have a little bit more, character. So you just try to find out, who that character is, right? So, yeah, that's about it.
Yeah.
There's a really good question here.
I was going to get it. I think I know which one. Hold on. Hold on. This one right here where it says.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
Gabe, doesn't 2 mics cancel each other out? Phase issues.
There are 2 kinds of phase. There's phase is a time thing when a sound wave hits 2 things at different times. And then there's also polarity, which is the sound waves being inverse of each other, and both can cause things to cancel each other out. Sometimes if an acoustic guitar is out of phase, often when you're listening to it, you will hear all the low end just completely disappear. Other times it'll sound a bit like there's a kind of a half-cocked wah on. It's just a weird wah sound. It's pretty bad. So how I avoid phase issues, first of all, is just listen. Set the mics up, play, listen. And a lot of times I'm recording somebody who's singing and playing at the same time, which is, high likelihood of phase issues. So it's about mic placement and listening. There are a couple ways to get away from that. There's a 3-to-1 rule in recording. You want microphones to be 3 times as far from each other as they are from whatever they're pointing at. If they're pointing at the same spot, if they're pointing at different things, it's less important. But if they're both pointing at the guitar, you want them 3 times as far from each other as they are from the guitar. So if my mic 1 is 1 foot from the guitar and my mic 2 is 4 feet from the guitar, I'm probably pretty good. That's not to say there won't be polarity issues or something like that. So then I listen, and just listen in headphones and check it out.
You got all the tricks.
You got all the tricks. Okay, here's one.
Yeah.
Here's one. Here's a good question. So this is actually the last question I was going to ask, or that I had queued up here was, let's get back to the basics again. What's the best microphone for an acoustic guitar? And then we got a question of clarity in the comments that I want to chat. But we could all talk about mics all day long. I'm going to quote my friend Gabe here, saying it's not always the mic. It's mic placement. It's not always the mic. Sometimes you can spend this mic right here would be good for recording if I put it in the right place. So, we all have our favorites, and I like the idea of Ram and Daria and Mike and Gabe in the comments after the show. Let's put some mics that we really love using.
Sure.
But I want to pull this question of clarity up. Where'd it go? Nope. Right here. If you had one condenser mic, would it be large diaphragm or small diaphragm?
Who wants to go first?
Ram.
I'd go large.
Yeah. Well, what do you say?
I guess I would go large because dynamically, I would imagine you get a little bit more.
I go large because I can sing into it also. And I do that a lot. Why does Audio Technica name their stuff with names that you can't remember? It's all like AT blah, 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 blah. But my mic that I record with, I should have grabbed it. I will write it down in the comments later. I'll often do what Gabe said, like play and record and sing all at the same time. And it's a large diaphragm, right? And so it's good for just catching both at once too, if I want to do that.
Gabe, before you answer that question, okay, never mind. Answer that question. Large or small diaphragm?
I'll
so the question,
it a little bit.
Let's restate the
It a
question.
little
If you had one condenser, it's not specifically for an instrument or a vocal. If you had one condenser, what would it be, large or small?
The truth is you can use either thing for either. The difference between a large diaphragm and a small diaphragm is pretty small sonically. Small diaphragms.
What's the difference?
You knew I was going to do this.
Yeah.
Small diaphragm microphones will preserve more detail in the sound, and large diaphragm microphones have lower self noise. So if I was only going to have one thing at all, I would have a large diaphragm microphone. If I could only have one for guitar, I would choose a small diaphragm. But if you can only have one period, I would choose a large diaphragm.
Yeah.
There's the difference between them is not as big as you think. The larger diaphragm just has less self noise.
Wow. That's the nerdiest thing you've ever said. Go large or go home. Okay, if you had and then we're going to move this show along, because I think that we often talk on these shows, and yes, there are a lot of folks here who may not be following a word we're saying. My mom is going to hit me up later and be like, no clue. Or she's going to tell me it was a good show. Like last week, she said that was one of the best shows you've ever had. And she really likes when you guys are on, Daria. So,
yay. Hi, Jay's mom.
So I think we're happy here. But if you had one, here's another one. Okay, we did have a whole show on mics. We should have another whole show on mics.
We should.
If you had one mic in general, what would it be?
Oh, the actual model?
Ooh.
Yeah, wait. Are we talking about in the whole of existence?
Yeah.
Because I mean that changes the answer too.
Yeah. Do you want me to jump in? I'm probably the least knowledgeable. Like I'm a creature of habit and very, very loyal. So if I find something that works for me and that I like the sound of, I'll just stick with it like forever until he puts something else in front of me. This was like my dream mic for performing live that I coveted like since the time I started singing and saved up the money and found a way to get it. And we're talking into it right now. And it's the Neumann KSM 105, right? Yeah, the KSM 105. And so this is a weird choice, but as a performer, having something that's directional is really, really nice. And it also sounds great to record on too. And so yeah, I would pick this guy.
Gabe, what's yours?
Well, I want to hear Rams.
Ram, what's yours? Oh,
You
this
know,
is good.
my gut wants to say Telefunken, but I actually have never had one.
Does your gut want to say an ELAM 251?
I've seen a lot of people who've been singing in those who I love the way they sound.
I do too. I know.
I don't know what I would sound like in it or her, but yeah. I mean,
I want to try it.
If it wasn't an economic decision, I think I would definitely want to at least try it with the option to send it back if I didn't like it.
Gabe, what would you say?
That's a really good option. Telefunkens are great. Telefunkens are great. The M60 FET is what I use on guitars, on acoustic guitars, and they're really good.
Now we're jealous.
Yeah, I think the 251 would be a good choice.
251, man.
I'm such a utility, but I'm also gonna go back and give two other options because I'm a nerd. If you're on a budget, and I could only pick one thing in the like $300 or less category, I would pick an AT4040.
AT4040, yeah.
Which is a very transparent, neutral sounding mic. It's super transparent. You can use it on literally anything and it's going to sound good. In the $1,000 or less category, I'd probably pick a KSM 44.
Mm-hmm.
Multi-pattern. It's really colored. It's got a really colored, different sound, but it's always good on everything. And you can go to any studio in the world and they probably have 3 or 4 of both of those.
Mike, what's yours?
I'm a go big or go home kind of guy. If I was going to have one, I want a Neumann U87.
That's a good option.
That's a good
I've never sung into one.
Yeah.
It's so utilitarian. You can use it on, I mean, first of all, for vocals, it's bulletproof.
Yeah.
But it's great for acoustic
voiceover.
guitar.
It's really good for voiceover.
Extremely great for voiceover. If you don't have those kind of dollars, there are a lot of reputable companies out there that make really good clones. Warm Audio is one of them. They make a really good U87 clone that costs like less than a third of what a U87 actually costs. But there's something about a German microphone. It's built solidly and will last forever.
C414, baby.
Yep.
There's your AKG
right there. There's your AKG right there. Yep. Our hell knows what's up right there. AKG C414. That mic right there is just bulletproof. We could do an entire. We could just. Let's do an episode coming up. We'll get some nerds on here and we'll just drop mic models and gush over them.
And by the time we're done, everybody's gonna be like, all I know is numbers and letters.
Yeah. They need to name them fun things. Right. This one's Susan.
It would be cool. It would be super
the
cool.
Neumann cotton candy. Like that would be a much more fun name.
Remember them. Yes.
There you go.
It would be super
actually
cool to
Blue
do.
Microphones does do that.
Nice.
Oh yeah.
They have the bottle rocket and
And see, yes, this is what we
they
need.
have fun names,
It would be cool to do a nerdy episode where we just play guitars through different microphones back to back.
Speaking of playing guitars through different microphones, for the 119 people who are watching, guess what time it is? It is that time. Daria Musk, would you like to perform a song for us?
Sure, if you guys want me to.
This is going to be awesome.
Yeah.
Here, let me get out of your way.
Okay.
You're not playing bass? You're not going to play bass guitar, Ram? Bass?
No, not tonight.
I guess he's stepping out.
I'm also going to get out of your way.
You just lean a little bit over. Okay, and I'm gonna line this in so you get both, a little bit of both.
This is good.
Yeah. Taylor numbers I can remember. Those make sense to me. The microphone numbers are just they get kind of crazy.
Did you do the distressor?
Yeah, I'm going to. You guys, thank you so much for having me, by the way, and letting me
You want to tell
join
them
in.
what you're using?
No, he left, but he's still talking to me. Yes, I will tell them what I'm using. Okay, so this is one of the guitars that was in that video earlier. This is the GT611E, right? Yes? Yeah. And she's very,
I
very
agree, Tex.
Look at
I
this.
agree. We're 2 minutes of sports would only be talking about tomorrow's opening day, and we're excited about that because baseball is the greatest sport on the planet. However, Daria is much better than 2 minutes of sports. She's much better than trivia. So here's what we're gonna
Oh,
do.
you're so sweet.
We're gonna do a Mike. Mike is gonna do a Mike's question because Lindsay couldn't make the show tonight. So Mike, get your question ready for Daria. Daria is gonna play. We are not doing 2 minutes of sports tonight, and we are not doing trivia just because, Daria, this is about you.
Oh,
Thank you
you're
for
so
being on the
sweet.
show.
Thank you for having me, you guys. It's always so fun to be here. And I will say, though, I've been watching basketball, Jay, because I know you always try to get me to do it. And I don't really know basketball very well, but I've been watching Caitlin Clark be awesome and shoot from all over the court. And it's amazing. And even me, someone who doesn't really understand basketball very well, can totally appreciate it. It's awesome. So, yeah.
But tomorrow's
watching
opening day, I just also want to say that.
Okay, you're not going to get me on the baseball thing. You got me into basketball. This is enough already. Okay.
But what we're trying to say is tomorrow's opening day. That's what we're trying to say. Okay, we just did 2 minutes of sports, and it's time for Daria.
It was 20
All right,
seconds.
Daria, take it away.
Okay, cool. So, wait, before I put on all these sounds and stuff, I will just give a shout out because I thought today would be a fun day to do a song. So this is a song like nobody's heard. It's brand new. We haven't even recorded it yet. So it's just in that fun like baby song stage. But I know I'm in a safe space with all of my fabulous nerds here. But Ram and I, we always just write together. It's just us, basically. We never collaborate with anyone else, except now we have this amazing friend, Bill. I don't think Bill's here tonight. I don't know if he's watching, but I'm sure he'll come and see it later. But Bill and Ram and I collaborate sometimes like on Zoom, like just like this. And we call ourselves the Knuckleheads because Bob Taylor called us that. We met with Bob Taylor once and Bob Taylor was like, get out of here, you knuckleheads. And so we're like, oh, is that our little songwriter name, our songwriter trio name? So this is a Knuckleheads song. Yeah. And so I'm just going to, if we're talking about recording and stuff, I'm just going to pop on a tiny bit of reverb and a little thing called the distressor that I get from my Universal Audio. Both of the reverb and the distressor are in the Universal Audio twin duo that I'm using to plug in. And yeah, this is a new little song. I don't even really know if we have a name for it yet. Yeah. Okay. Here we go. Your perfume enters the room before you in a lavender hue. You appear to me, and all my senses are on alert, and I'll be patient. Will you be waiting? All my senses are on alert, and I'll meet me in fields of fresh pressed laundry, clouds of vanilla blue. Rolling seas of cedar and roses when I think of you. So glad you existed. You turned out to be true. So glad you existed. I'll be waiting for you. Roses waiting outside my door. Eagle left handed to keep me here with you. And all my senses are on alert, and I'll be patient. Will you be waiting? All my senses are on alert, and meet me in fields of fresh pressed laundry, clouds of vanilla blues, rolling seas of cedar and roses when I think of you. So glad you existed. out to be true. So glad you existed. I'll be waiting for you. I'll be waiting. Cinnamon and clove must be pheromones running through my brain. Now I lost control, hesitating. Mocha espresso, my olfactory bowels win. Cinnamon and foam, I hope that I didn't know. You turned out to be true. So glad you existed. I've been waiting for you.
So good.
That was great.
Thank you so much. I realized right when I started that I didn't pull up the little thing with my lyrics for the bridge, and I remembered them. So that was really good because it really is like brand new. But did you guys like it? It's really fun to play. It was fun.
Yeah,
and I
awesome.
saw, oh, thank you so much. Oh, thank you, Carlos. Thank you, Phil. Thank you, Ken. Thank you, Timothy. Thank you, everybody. And Bob. And yes, I love you guys. And what was I going to say? I saw earlier somebody said something. Did I do my pick trick in the GT video? Because somebody asked about the pick trick that, and I did it just now. That's my favorite part. I love the bridge with the so what I do there, that's an Andy Summers from The Police. That's a trick that I learned from, he had a VHS Hot Licks instructional video that I got my hands on when I was like 13. And that was one of the cool things that he taught, was like that he tucks the pick between these fingers and then is able to do that. And so if you just practice it a bit, so here, let me see if I can show you. So you get like, and then tuck. So you're not really seeing it, but yeah, so this is a really, really fun trick to do. So you can get the fingers out and yeah.
You did have a question about what pick you use and how thick is it?
You know what pick I'd like to be using are the Taylor picks, but nobody ever sent me any. And I remember I tried to order them and they're so popular that I can never get my hands on them. So if anybody has some extras.
They sell out pretty quick. They are fantastic.
I know. So through just default, I like the Fender. I like the Fender Californias. I'm sorry. No, sorry. No, but they're like chalky. But I want the Taylors. I want them. But I like a medium, actually. It has a little bit of give. But I use my fingers a lot. Like I was using it there just for like a little bit of extra chunk, but I actually find fingers and nails are really, really good.
I think it would be good. I saw a comment that we should have a show on songwriting. I think that would be a great idea. Mike's a great songwriter. Gabe's a great songwriter. We could have, if Lund is, I told you I was going to read a text message. Basically in a text message, Andy sent me a text message from, I believe, Tokyo this morning when I woke up, and he was like, Jay, I'm so sorry. I'm in Tokyo. I'm not in the North Woods and I cannot join the show. So as you know, Andy Lund, he's part of his territory or a lot of the Asian countries. And so it's where he is. And when he goes over there, he stays for quite a while. So he misses everybody. He sends his love.
Love you, Andy.
But anywho, Andy's great at songwriting. I write songs as well. Gabe writes songs as well. It would be nice to do that. Another thing would be textures. So what I like about your songwriting, Daria and Ram, now Bill. I know Bill. Bill's great.
Yeah.
But what I've noticed is when you write songs, you always have these textures in there. And texture meaning you palm mute like crazy on a lot of your songs. And so do I.
Yes.
It's just a thing that sometimes makes a lot of sense.
Do you guys know, I'm sure people in the chat know what palm muting is, but it's really fun, especially when you're like me and you're more of a songwriter and not a shredder.
Mike knows how to palm mute.
You want, I'm sure you do.
Oh, yeah.
You want textures. And I do notice that a lot, though. It's a good point that like a lot of people are just, like giving it everything you got. And because I grew up in a house with musicians, not just him, but like classical musician with my mom, dynamics dynamics were always drilled into me. Like, how are you going to enjoy the louds if you don't have some soft? You need give and take. You need that stuff. And so, yeah, just rest the meaty part of your palm against the strings a little bit, and then you get all those fun chunkies. Yeah.
Daria, you had a question, or anybody? Guitar Dog. Ever try Black Mountain thumb picks, Daria, or anybody?
Thumb picks. You used to use thumb picks.
I use
don't-
national thumb picks.
I can't do the thumb pick thing. It makes me. I always drop it.
No.
I use nationals.
Oh no, here I'll show you.
You want to grab one? He used to use thumb picks all the time. I can do you one better. When I very, 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 very first started out, don't trip on all the wires. That's the other thing about recording at home. Don't trip on the wires. That's the most important part.
Safety
We
first.
can do a whole
Gaff
episode
tape.
on wire management.
Yes, no, a lot of recording at home is tripping over wires and doing things like this. Like, you're already set up in front of the mics, and then you realize that like the cable's on the floor, and then you're doing this. That's what recording home is about.
We'll do an episode where Jay comes over and gaff tapes all your cables.
Oh my God, would you? That would be great. But I was going to say, when I first started out, I think it was my older brother's friends who were girls all loved Ani DeFranco. And I got into that. And so I got really into, I broke so many strings. Like, when I first started playing guitar, I broke strings all day, every day, because I was playing so hard. And it's hilarious to me now because I never break strings anymore. I can't imagine the intensity, the little teenage girl intensity with which I was beating these guitars. But I heard that she used fake nails and glued them
Jason
on.
Mraz.
Yeah. And so I used to do that. Like, when I first started out, I would glue the fake nails on, but not paint them or anything pretty, just leave these horrible white fake nails.
So good.
And then I'd do electrical tape over that. And then I would, because I was copying her. And it wasn't until I realized that the glue and stuff smelled really toxic, and I was like, maybe I don't want to do this anymore. Now
Mraz
my own
does
nails.
that. Sometimes Mraz will show up and his nails are falling off, and he'll be like, "Oh, it's time for a manicure." Anyway, but yeah, Jason he glues it's a couple of them. He uses 3 or something like that.
That's crazy. Yeah.
I use these things when I play the electric bass mostly. They're called Hiru. They come like this. You see that sharp point?
Hold on, let me zoom in on you real quick. Do that again.
Can you see?
Yeah.
See the sharp point? So this is an unused one, right? So when I use them, they end up like this, and that's when
That's
they're
just
good.
about perfect. Yeah.
That's when they're good.
That's when they're good.
And what I do is I tape it, electrical tape all on my hand so it won't fall off.
Yeah.
And that way I can, really play. And so I do the double fingers in this thing.
Yeah.
And it's great. I love it.
I'm not smart enough to use thumb picks.
I like them for finger
confusing.
style. I use them for finger style. I'll do. I use national thumb picks. I grow really long, hard nails, so I'll use my fingernails, or depending on what style of music I'm playing, I'll use national thumb picks in my nails. Or sometimes I do hybrid picking because I hold my guitar pick like a mandolin player. So
There
do
you go.
I. Yeah.
Always be proud of the guitar player manicure. The short on one side, long on the other.
Short on one side, long on the other. Yeah.
My whole life, girls have always all my girlfriends are like, "What is happening with this?" Like, yes, this is what you want. I think I need to change it.
Mine are all cut because I just got back from a shoot in the Pacific Northwest and I cut my nails for shoots. But usually my right hand is pretty long.
That's
someone said
hilarious.
Ram, those are like Black Mountains. So that's what they were talking about.
Perfect.
Someone said earlier, Ram, you are a timeless character. And I agree.
I think you can even remove timeless out of there.
Yeah, just a character.
That's a good one. What's the difference? We'll answer this question. What's the difference between how mandolin players hold their picks? Sideways.
Oof, I wish I had a guitar pick on me, but basically instead of, how you hold a pick like this and the point is coming straight out, so you're playing like this and you're using the tip. Instead, what I'm actually doing is, how do I not have a guitar pick?
Here, I can be your model. You tell me what to do.
Shoot. So basically I'm taking the back side of the pick into the crook of my finger, and rotating it so the pick is down slightly, and then I play with the long edge of the pick, not the front tip, but I actually play with the long.
Cool.
Yep. So I'm actually playing with the bearing edge of the pick, and it gives you like this chunkier sound.
You get the.
Yeah. Same.
Yep.
I love
Yeah.
those. Yeah,
I love
that's
that.
fun. Texture.
If
Like
you're
bringing it
textures.
back.
If
Texture.
you want to hear the pick, you can use a thinner pick. If you don't want to hear the pick, you use a thicker pick, and it'll just
Yeah.
sound more like the meat of your fingers. You
Yeah.
can do a ton of stuff with just picks.
Yeah, the best way to change your tone is to change your picks. That's for sure.
I'm waiting on those dark tones. That's
okay.
I've had
Fine. Maybe we'll send you
Mark that down. Somebody mark that down.
Shameless.
Maybe we'll send you some picks. All right. So I was going to have Mike. Lindsay's not here. Sharpie's not here. He left the whole show. He left the whole company.
We should get Sharpie to send in a question once in a while.
I think Sharpie should. I think Lindsay should send in some questions too. I mean, she's just been. We hear you text. We miss Lindsay as well. She is so.
How you doing,
We're
Lindsay?
all very busy right now, and you guys will see as the rest of the year comes through why we're so busy. And Lindsay is she's out there crushing it for us. So we appreciate her, and we do miss her as well. Mike. That being said, do you have a Mike's question
I
for
do.
Daria?
I actually have a question in 3 parts.
Okay.
Awesome.
The first part is 2 parts, and then there's 1 part. So if you could all just do the math on that, it's 3 somehow. And Roger wants to ask the question. That's why he's crying right now.
I love Roger so much. Can I borrow Roger?
Yes, he's great to record with, except when he's not.
So adorable.
So we're talking about home recording, but apart from, let's not talk about guitars. Let's not talk about the instruments, right? Apart from your microphone, which you covet, obviously, what's one piece of gear you absolutely could not live without? And what's one piece of gear you wish you had?
Ooh. Okay.
You can't phone a friend. You both have to answer it.
Yeah, no, we both have to. Okay, let's start with can't live without. And it can't be the guitar or the
not talking about instruments, not talking about the microphone. No instruments, not the microphone. As far as your gear, what one item in your recording world that you could not live without, and one piece of gear you wish you had?
That's really cool.
I know mine.
Yeah, you go.
I couldn't live without Gabriel O'Brien.
I was gonna say it's him.
I can't live without Bo Burchell. I can't live without Ben Moore, Alec Moore, Will Yip. Can I keep going? Like
I think that's my answer too. I can't
live without Ram.
Yeah, I can't live without Ram. It's seriously though, like on a serious note, it's really interesting to have had you as like the frame of music for my whole life. And I remember writing my first song, like my very, very first song, and playing it for you. And you being like, okay, cool, but maybe you might want to, I was like right away. And I didn't feel hurt because I could tell you were treating me with respect. It was like, oh, it was intriguing enough to you that you had a thought. And so that was really cool. It wasn't like, oh, honey, good job. I'm so proud of you. It was like, cool, but you keep changing. I remember exactly what you said. You said you were changing the chords too fast. And why don't, like in the verses, as opposed to the chorus, why don't you hold them longer and give yourself more room to sing over it? And I did. And it became like my first really good song, I think. And so you've always been there to give me something to play off of and to inspire me to go farther and go forward and to reach for someone to see if I could get it out of my head so that someone else could hear it and understand it. And so I can't live without you.
It's so sweet.
It's true.
So would that be inspiration?
I mean, inspiration, but he's like,
he's one step further,
he's the
right?
Guru. He's he's my, I'm sort of the Padawan. You're the Jedi or whatever. Like, you know the stuff. You can see it. He has a very like mystical
Zen-like
man on a mountaintop vibes.
Yeah.
So I come to the cave and I have brought a song, and he says, oh, in the time you wrote your one little pop song, I have written a symphony. And I'm like, yes, thank you.
Ram, what is your
His
answer?
Lord of the Rings name is Ramdolph.
Ramdolph.
Yes. I love it.
Ramdolph, what is your one thing you can't live without?
Yeah, I couldn't live without any of you guys, but the one thing I couldn't live up without is without the muse.
Do you want to explain what you mean when you say that? Because it's kind of you language.
Oh, it is.
I think.
Well,
people use that word in different ways.
Like I said earlier, the music is like a current. It's like its own kind of like the air we breathe, right? It's just always there, and it's such a powerful influencer of consciousness, and so that's really what I look for every day, is to have some sort of conversation with the muse, because it informs so many things in life. And I think it's closely related to love. So that's why I try to aspire, like, how could you be loving in every situation, right? And not fearful. So I reach for the muse. That's sort of what I couldn't live without.
I'm writing a song.
The gear that I wish that I had, I think it's the Neve Genesis, I think, or is that the board? It's this unbelievable mixing board that I wish I could have.
Oh, poor baby. Gear that I wish I could have. Yeah, one of those mics we were talking about, one of the fancy Telefunkens or a U87 or something. I haven't sung into those before. That would be, as a singer, such a delight to hear what is that legendary thing everybody's always talking about. That would be really, really cool. Yeah.
Gabe, what's yours? What's the one thing you couldn't live without?
Creativity.
You've been living without it for so long, so why the change?
I think
again, I couldn't live without Gabriel or Daria or Mike.
Yeah, I think creativity and other creative people. I think that's being around people. One of the best pieces I ever got as a musician was to surround yourself with people who are better than you. Mm-hmm. Spend all your time with people who are better than you, and that's what I do every day. I try to work with around people that I admire because it's inspiring and it really fosters creativity and makes me want to try harder and do new things and just be open to learning something. I think a lot of times people can easily feel when you're around accomplished people, it's easy to feel like
I know.
Jay and I are rough on each other.
We're rough. We do this. Tex. Gabriel is a Cleveland baseball team fan. I can't call them the Guardians. And I'm a Detroit Tigers fan. So we're like rivals. And it's we love this sport we call our friendship.
But yeah, I think people a lot of times can be really hard on themselves about creativity and about whether or not they're accomplishing. I was talking to my daughter about this the other day. She came to me and said, "Hey, she was really upset about an art project in school because it wasn't becoming what she saw in her head it becoming, and she was very frustrated by it." And I was explaining to her that sometimes that's how you learn. You fail and you learn something good from it. Yeah. As long as you just accept that you're failing and you're learning, that's okay. You could keep moving forward, and by surrounding yourself with other creative people you admire, you can take that, that fail or that struggle that you're having and go to other people like Jay mentioned earlier, but I have people for this too. And you go, oh, this thing isn't going well. What else can I try? What are, or what other avenue can I take here? Daria, a while back, I haven't got to really talk to you in a little bit, but you had told me about a reverb that you love, the Valhalla reverb, and I'd never tried it. And bought it. It's amazing.
It so is the best.
It's on like everything now. Yeah. But so, getting out of your own habits and letting other people inspire you creatively because, something they're doing is just so valuable.
Gabe, can I tell you something to tell your daughter and for everyone here? I think
I'll play this back for her.
Okay, amazing. And if we could flip the question to what do you need to live without? Like what would be better to live without would be judgment and that self-judgment. And I can say as a recovering judging yourself all the time person, it is first of all so much happier and more wonderful and more creative to just let that go and just stop. But as a creative person, I used to just rake myself over the coals, constantly when I was trying to write, it sounds too happy. And now it sounds too sad. And now it's, it's not doing what I want. And I had a real hard time making stuff because I would just bum myself out constantly. And then
Yeah.
I'm watching this guy write 100 things a day. And I'm like, what is the difference? And of course, it's years of excellence, but it's also just that he doesn't judge it as it's coming through. And so what's really cool about for your daughter, Gabe, and for everybody. So Ira Glass talks about the taste gap, the taste level gap. I forget what he calls it, but this is the coolest thing that I think all creatives should know about. He says this happens in the life of every creative. Let's say in the example of music, you listen to music, you listen to songs, you start to really like stuff. You start to develop a sense of taste. You start to decide what you like and what your favorite thing is. Then you get inspired to do it yourself. Then you go and you try for the first time at the beginning. And what you can do does not match your taste level because you're not there yet. And so now you've got this gap between what you like and what you're capable of. Yeah. And this isn't a bad thing. And the only way to close that gap, he says, is to just incrementally make bad stuff. And I don't know what the magic of the universe, the magic of the muse is, that you can practice sounding bad and eventually sound good. You can make a bunch of bad things and eventually they get better, but that's even a judgment. It's just, it will start to close the gap to where your taste level is. And the only way to get there is to just do it. And as that gap starts to close, God, things get really, really fun. And I feel like I'm however many bajillions of years into my career, even as a young musician. And I feel like I'm just starting to close that gap a little bit. And man, I'm starting to have so much fun. It's so much fun. And it's going to keep closing forever. But yeah, so that you can tell her that's a sign that she has taste and that she has great ears or great eyes, whatever, if it was an art project or whatever it was. And that means she's good. There's a creative in there. There's an artist in there. And she will start to satisfy that artist eventually. But she has to just keep doing it.
Jay, what's that Bob Taylor quote?
I was just about to say it. Anything worth doing is worth doing poorly. That's an important statement. I have some advice that I give bands, and then we're gonna wrap this. We're gonna wrap this a 1 hour and 52 minute and 29 second show up, and that is and they talked and they kept talking and it was wild. Anyway, but one of the things.
Another song. I still have
been 1 hour and 52 minutes, and they're not talking about recording.
Anyway, one of the things I used to tell when I was on the record side of the industry, I used to tell artists is that do your best to be in your own favorite band. Don't be ashamed to listen to your stuff. When your record comes out, keep listening to it. Keep listening to it. Keep listening to it and learn it and muscle memory. And you have to keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it. And when bands used to tell me my favorite record of all time is, I used to work with this band. My mom knows them. My mom met them. It was a band, it was a metal band out of Tucson, Arizona called The Bled. And I asked, they have a record that I helped put out. I was kind of ran the label that they co-ran the label that they put the record out on. And it's turning 20 years old. 20 years old. And I asked the drummer a couple of months ago, what's your favorite record? And he goes, The Bled, Pass the Flask. Because you told me once to be in my own favorite band, and I am. He used to play drums in Helmet. He used to play drums with Gavin Rossdale. He used to play drums with, he's been all over the place. My Chemical Romance. He was a drummer in My Chemical Romance for a little while. Mike Petticone still says to this day, my favorite record is The Bled, Pass the Flask, because you told me to. I needed to be in my favorite band. That is inspiration. So learn from others. What can I live without? It's that same thing I was talking about at the beginning of the show, Daria. And that is stop being reactive when somebody likes something that you don't like.
Yeah.
And listen to yourself. And if anything is worth doing, it's worth doing poorly and make a mistake. And it's like Mike played me the song that he was talking about earlier, where he recorded his neighbor singing karaoke. I never in my right mind would have been smart enough or witty enough or quick enough to go, I'm going to record this and make a song. That right there is inspiring.
We should have told them what we recorded yesterday. The neighbors are crazy. Building a deck or something. And I don't know, were they sawing?
Yeah,
was it like a saw or something? Yeah. It sounded like the most experimental, weird, saxophone solo I'd ever heard. It was the
pitch was going all over the place. I couldn't believe it.
We ran out there with a phone. The other day, actually, I was in my brother's studio upstairs, which is, again, just like a room with a computer in it. And and we were writing a song together, which was really fun. And a truck was going down the oh, I love that.
Ken, it's like we have Bob Taylor on.
Said
Whenever
no
we
one
have Bob
ever.
on, it's like 2 hours later, we're still
Yeah.
here. We're gonna wrap this up shortly.
Okay.
Sorry, Daria.
Well,
Keep
no,
going.
sorry. No, it's not important. It's just a truck started backing up down the driveway and it's doing the beep, beep, beep. And we both looked at each other. We're like, oh my God, that's in the same key that we're writing. And we recorded out the window, threw it on. It's part of the drop now. It's no. Beep, 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 beep. It's awesome. So yeah, just have fun.
Rob's got a riddle. Hey guys, what do you?
Piece of gear I wish I had. Daria's talent.
Oh,
Yeah, that's true.
you're so
Wow.
sweet.
That's sure.
Also some API preamps would not be so bad.
That's for sure. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for hanging out with us on this very
Oh,
long show. But
thank
when
you guys
Daria
so
and Ram are on, it's like we have to hang out with them. And I learned a few months back that they're evening people. They stay up late and they wake
Yeah.
up. I don't know when they wake up, but they
Aren't
like
musicians-
the evening time. So this was easy for them.
I know.
Gabe, you're tired.
Yeah, you got to get some
Oh.
sleep.
It's time for you to go to sleep.
You want a lullaby? I can play you guys out.
Yeah,
Or
will you
wait to
play
go.
a little? We'll have Daria
Wait,
play us
where's my-
out. Mike,
Play us out.
Mike and Roger, it's always great to
Grab
see you. Thank you so much,
I'll get someone
everybody.
to guitar.
We understand this show is not for everybody. We understand that we're getting up here and sometimes we're just indulging in ourselves and talking about
I think
craziness.
they had fun with us in the end. See you guys. It's
We
like, you
appreciate
have-
all of you that it is
Yeah.
for. Thank you, nerds.
Thank
We
you so
appreciate
much.
you guys.
Thank you so much, you guys. It's true.
Roger
Like,
appreciates
think
you.
of us as your super, super nerdy friends. And it's true. Like, somebody earlier was like, you guys could have done this in a group chat. And it was like, well, yeah, we do that too. But but you're a part of the
When's
group
the
chat
win?
now. Like, you're in the group chat. You consider you have 5 new friends here.
Look at Roger. Roger's in
Bob.
Roger, 6 new friends.
Yeah.
Bob, Peter, Phil, Tex, Kay Springer, Ken, Jeremy, Guitar Dog, John, Rob again. Wow, Tex, you guys really like to talk. You guys talk too much in the feed.
Seriously.
You guys are the best. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. Daria, Ram, we'll let you sing us out.
It's actually one of my favorite, like, doing the song as a lullaby. And it's an extra little dig against my dearest friend Jay, because it's a Dave Matthews song. Come see, I swear by now I'm faint out against my troubles now. Oh, I'm coming slow but speeding. Do you wish dancing while I'm in the front of my play on time is one. Oh, but difficulties coming here. I will go in this way, and I'll find my own way out. I won't tell you to stay, but you're coming too much more. All at once the ghosts come back, reeling in you now. Oh, but what if they came down crashing? Remember when I used to play for all the loneliness that nobody notices now? Oh, yeah, big and slow, I'm coming here. Yeah. Oh, I'm waiting. I wanted to stay. I wanted to play. I wanted to love you. I'm only this far, and only tomorrow leads my way. I'm coming waltzing back in. move it into your head. Please, I wouldn't pass you by. Thanks, Robert. When I wouldn't take any more for what sort of man goes by. I will bring you water. Why would you ever be glad? It melts into wonder. I came in praying for you, and why would you run into rain and they let the tears splash all over you? Yeah, all over you. Thank you, Primetime. Thank you, Happy, for having us so much.
Primetime.
We love Jay. We love
Thank
Gabe.
you, Jay.
We love Mike. We love everybody.
Thank you,
here.
Roger, Mike, and Gabriel.
Thank you all so much. We love you guys.
All right. Before we hang up, I got to say something real quick. So I would usually pass judgment on Dave Matthews. Here's the deal. Dave Matthews is a great songwriter, but you make him better.
Oh, man.
So I would rather listen to Daria sing Dave Matthews songs than Dave Matthews sing Dave Matthews songs. And
Well,
that is the truth.
I will
I'm
go to bed
just
smiling. Thank
saying.
you so much.
We love you guys.
We
love
love
you, Gabe. Love you, Mike. Love you,
We
Ram.
love you all so much.
All right,
Thank you,
everybody. We're
guys.
going to end this 2 hour and 2 minute and 16-second podcast.
Short.
Seriously, this is short for us. You know this. We do
This
6
is
hours.
we could go on forever. Daria
Oh.
has been known for playing for 24 hours straight. So
That's true. That's true. Okay, Ken, Peter, Phil, Guitar Dog, everybody, thank you. We'll come back in the gentler DM. we'll
There's so
would love
many
to come
meetings.
back. We love you guys so much. Thank you for having us.
all right,
Thanks,
guys.
nerds.
Oh,
Thanks, nerds.
Jay, we didn't tell them. Okay. If you like hearing about us recording at home, there's more about that coming soon.
Yeah, we're gonna start doing a series with Daria and Ram. Damria is what I almost called you. With Daria and Ram about home recording. So
Yeah.
stay tuned for more of that stuff. And yes, of course, we'll have him back on the show. All right, now we're gonna hang up because it's been 2 hours and 3 minutes and 7 seconds.
We love you guys. Good night.
Good night.